And you're right, habits is a key conversation that we're having with people, like trying on new habits. You get this idea of a habit and then it may or may not stick. So then you gotta, create a new habit or a different one or alter it. But
Yeah.
Normalization.
Right. And I mean, that's the interesting thing about, I know neither of us are really focused on the amount of time that we've been doing this, but it has been about 6 weeks.
Okay.
And right. And so we know that new habits take 21 days?
About on average in some case about 90 days to really become a new way of life.
New way of life. Okay. Yeah. So let's talk about that.
Habit. Most people, like if you don't stick with the habit for more than 7 days, it's probably not going to be a new habit. If you get to 21 to 30 days, you really have a very good chance of that being a new habit. By the time you're at 90 days, it predicts sticking to it for a year. And after a year, it's kind of, this is sort of some of the neuroscience that we look at. It becomes like a new way of life. And it's hard to remember life without it once you.
So like 90 days.
90 days. It's why a lot of people who are in substance abuse recovery, if they are, for example, go to a program for 21 days or 30 days, that 90 days following that, when you come out, for example, of a program, even if you're there for eating disorder, whatever it is, those 90 days are really key for helping neuro wiring and firing of new habits to sort of take hold, and new patterns to seem familiar and comfortable. So new habits don't feel familiar or comfortable for a while. We fight them with our old habits, right? Yeah. So it takes a period of time for the brain to start to feel that a pattern is familiar, and then it gains momentum. If you're turning a ship around in the ocean.
Yeah, right.
After, there's some force that you have to exert, and after a while, the ship's just kind of on go.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. There's a great quote by Samuel Johnson, and he says, "The chains of habit are too weak to be felt until they're too strong to be broken."
That's well put.
Yeah.
That's really well put.
Exactly what you're saying. So those of you who are just joined on, I was like, oh no, I thought it started at 10. It does start at 10. We were just catching up and just jumping right in like Lani and I always do.
We can't help ourselves.
We will brief intro, because I could spend an hour talking about you, your accomplishments, and all the things that I cherish about you.
Thank you.
But for those of you who don't already know Lani, I'll tell you a little bit of her educational background, which is impressive, and then what I love most about her. So she has a bachelor's degree from Harvard. She has a master's degree and doctorate from the University of Pennsylvania School of Social Work and Social Policy. She's written many papers and been published for her research. She's social work journals. She got a whole host of accomplishments, many of which I put in my notes. She helps a lot of Fortune 500 companies and individuals and families and a whole host of things. And what I appreciate most about Lani is that she makes very complicated things, really very psychologically sound, researched data and knowledge, and she synthesizes it and gives it to you in a way that's very what is it called? Like tangible, useful. You can make sense of it. You go, oh, okay, yeah, I totally get that. I could use that. And so I so appreciate you making time to share with this group your thoughts and your expertise and your guidance, because I don't care who you are. This is a hard time in life. And so your expertise is something so valuable to us. So I deeply thank you for making time.
It's a pleasure. Thanks so much for making this possible, Shannon. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. So one of the things that we talked about in one of our recent conversations was about what are some of the things that people could do that would actually harm them in the long run. And what do we need to be most cautious about? So I want to learn about that. I would love some do's and don'ts for us, like the really practical things in the way that only you can do. And then just your understanding of what's going on. So if you wanted to start with ballpark context or start, let me know.
Absolutely. So, I think one way to describe what we're in is just obviously a massive transition. We're in a massive phase of uncertainty. And this phase of uncertainty is bigger than any of the types of uncertainty that any of us living today, for the most part, have experienced, in the sense that we're not just feeling uncertain in one area of our lives, we're feeling uncertainty on all the aspects of our lives. And so that creates a sense of unwellness and anxiety and terror and fear. And that's a normal reaction, by the way. I do want to point out that being terrified or fearful right now is a very normal and healthy. It would be bizarre if we didn't feel those feelings, right? If something wouldn't be right in the head with us. So it's really normal to be freaking out right now. That said, there's absolutely some don'ts and do's, if you will, when we look at how we adjust to anxiety provoking times or uncertainty. So, let's frame that out a little bit. Again, the most common thing we try to do during times of uncertainty is seek certainty. Doesn't that feel helpful to sort of know, when will it be over? When will I go back to work? What will my paycheck look like? Or when will my kids do XYZ? Or when, it's really normal to crave certainty. The problem with craving certainty is a myth, in the sense that it's not really a thing. Do you understand it? We can have a feeling of certainty. Life was never certain. It was never a guarantee you and I weren't going to get hit by the bus walking out the door, or that our careers wouldn't be upended or whatever. But this is certainly a time of global uncertainty. Right. And so a don't would be to crave the feeling of certainty, because that's not actually what we need, even though that feeling feels pretty good. Mm-hmm. What we want is adaptation. What we want to begin to crave is adaptation. And adaptation is about trial and error, because we're in a new norm. And you're hearing that, but we're in a new norm, and that's okay. One of the other sort of don'ts is trying to go back in time or long for too long for what was. It's also very healthy, very normal to be grieving right now. We're in a phase of loss. And I do want to say to anybody out there that's a parent, your kids are grieving too. There are losses for them, and they're not immediately going to be chipper or coping, or, if you're seeing on social media, some kids have suddenly, become amazing at working out or cooking, or it's very painful right now to compare yourself to people that you think are nailing this, because number one, they might be nailing it on one level and falling apart on another, but also this is a time of loss. Yeah. And so it would be normal for your children to be cranky, or for your coworkers, or, your loved ones. So right now we're in a time, there's these three phases. Anytime we go through a massive upheaval or a trauma of any kind in our lives, phase one is all about gaining security again. It's just about, wellness, survival. We call it survival. This is crisis mode. Phase one, do I have food? Do the people I love have food? Are we safe? Mm-hmm. Are we well? So phase one, we're not trying to get a new job. We're not trying to create a new line of business or whatever, or let our children suddenly become, some new next thing. Phase one, we're trying to get through it. And getting through it is about comfort and survival. And so, right there's just tons of anxiety, which is normal and healthy anxiety about, am I okay? Are the people I love okay? Am I going to be okay? Phase one. Some people right now might be moving into phase two, which is about trying things on, right? This is experimentation phase. This is like, what's going to work for me? Are we doing lunches? Am I Zooming? Do I know how to Zoom? Can I even get the links figured out? We're doing trial and error, and we're doing it on a lot of levels, right, Shannon? Am I allowed to go for walks with friends? Can I visit? We're trying and error, and there's such uncertainty. I want to again emphasize the feeling in phase two, beyond terror and panic, which is one, is again continued grief and loss, but also a tremendous uncertainty. We're trying it on, not knowing what's going to work, because we don't know what the future holds. Mm-hmm. The third phase is eventually going to be adaptation, where we, believe it or not, we're going to somehow adapt to a new reality. Yeah. We don't know what it looks like, right, Shannon? But we're going to adapt to that new reality. Now, within each of those phases, there's some more do's and don'ts, but let me pause a little bit and see, what your thoughts are about that sort of framework.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful to ground us in the understanding and empathy that everybody has anxiety and fear, even through all the phases.
That's right.
And that once you catch yourself in that mode of let me try to do something like that. I think that sounds to me like it would be an indicator that you're exploring phase two.
Yes.
And is there any expectation around how long one should stay? Because let's just say some of us on the call today are I'm still squarely in phase one. Should I, because I love your example of like not comparing yourself to other people.
Right.
That's a good rule of thumb anyway, right?
Oh,
Comparison robs us of joy.
Yeah.
And it's not healthy because now you create more anxiety, right? Because you're like, oh, I should have.
That's
So
right.
can you tell me a little bit about like timelines?
Yeah. First, I want to say if anytime in your life you're feeling like panic or fear or loss or grief, and it's really, really strong and it's following you around and you're not getting relief, it's not sort of ebbing and flowing, it's really chasing you like morning, noon, and night, or you're waking up with it. It's time to call someone. It's time to call a safe person and cry and fall apart. It's time to make time for that. Make time to go ahead and have that feeling. And we want a non-judgmental person. Could be a friend that you call, could be a therapist that you call, or whatever, where you're allowed to fall apart and let Humpty Dumpty put you back together by basically validating that feeling. So I often say, if you're feeling this feeling, it's having you, but you're not making time to have it, it's going to get worse, and you're going to start feeling more terrified, more young, more crazy, whatever, and more lost. Those mean it's time to go ahead and have the feeling. For some people, write it out. As scary as it is, have it, face it, express it. Now, it's really important, though, that the listener doesn't judge you for it and go, you know what you should do is go work out and gain some new abs. It's really important that that person holds space for you and says, of course you're feeling this, it's okay. For me, and you and I mentioned this, my husband's an ER doctor. He is not the person that I could fall in phase one, me being terrified of this pandemic. He was not the person I could fall apart to. That would not be helpful for him. You know, I had to be strong for him. So I had to call him, I had to phone my friends and fall apart with them. Like, I need to fall apart, not in front of my ER doctor husband.
Right. Yeah. Who's at work every day and you're taking responsibility for him. And I love that you brought that up, because I think that is on the hearts of many people, is like, I don't want to burden someone with how I'm feeling, because they're probably feeling the same way. And if they see me feeling my weakness, I might actually make them worse. Like, what can you say to that?
I think it's important to figure out and try to intuit what they can and can't handle. If what they need from you is to be strong. So for example, you know, my husband literally said, I can't come home and see that face. I had terror in my eyes. He's like, I can't come home and see that face. That's not helping me. And so I realized, like, he's not going to be the one. So if you can sense that if you start to go there and they shut it up or they close it off, like, you know, they're not, they can't hold space for it. So that's where maybe, you know, again, a friend or a few people over, or again, a therapist. You know, we're doing teletherapy now, teleconsultation, for people that are not clients of ours, to just call with issues of anxiety. You know, they're not necessarily saying I have a lifelong issue of anxiety. They're saying I'm not okay right now. And so we're doing sort of one-off sessions and consultations for people now. That's available.
That's great.
Yeah.
So
sort of, how do you know you're moving into phase two? An important thing about goals. So when I'm trying, let's say you're moving into phase two, where you're trying on new things. You're trying on, like, okay, am I eating lunch a certain way? Am I doing morning walks? Am I doing evening walks? Am I not exercising at all? When we have a goal, it's what I call, it's a theory that it'll work. A goal is a theory. When you try it, you're either going to be better, the same, or worse. Does that make sense?
Totally.
If you try it on and you're feeling worse about yourself, you give it a try, you give it a week, you give it a couple days, but you're literally hating yourself even more, hating your family even more. You know, that's your body's way of saying, this is a good idea in theory. But it's not aligned into mind, body, and soul, and it's making me maybe hurt my children. Now I hate my children even more because they don't know how to cook, and now I have to kill them, right? So we want to have goals, but you know, the purpose of a goal is to inspire you to gain movement. I mean, the purpose of a goal is not pass fail. It's about inspiring us to move somewhere. And so if our goal will either do that or it won't. It'll either move us forward or if it won't. If it doesn't move us forward, it's not the right goal. It's either too big and we need to break it down, or we need to look somewhere else and keep experimenting, right? So either the goal is too big, and that's why I say right now it's not a time for huge goals, right? Baby steps, micro goals, and really being able to observe it without judging yourselves or condemning yourself for it not working. People are being very, very hard on themselves right now.
Very.
Like,
Agreed.
why am I not finding a new job? I have the perfect time to find. I'm like, whoa, how about right now, find your 2 feet and get yourself a shower and call that success.
Yes.
I do want to add, also very normal right now is to be very confused.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever was isn't now. And so that's very disorienting. So people feel they feel almost demented right now. Like they're confused. Yeah. It's because of cognitive dissonance. It's like the world as I knew it isn't here. And so there is some, brain fog happening right now.
Yes, for sure. And pretty much everything external to our homes is on pause.
And so a lot of the coping techniques that people normally could rely on are closed off to them.
Yeah.
People that they would see, things that they would go do are closed off to them. So again, what I would say about goals in general, and I use this both in my coaching, my counseling practice, there's going to be a time where having a baby goal is really helpful. It helps me focus my anxiety, turns anxiety, for example, into determination. So it gives me inspiration. Yeah. Then that same goal can cause me injury, and I need to go back to comfort. So there's, there's
is it like a cycle? Like, does it kind of
balance?
Okay.
I think it's balance. It's just like if you go to run, if you work out and you're working out, but you overdo it and you injure yourself, it's time to come back and take a day off, even though you're frustrated with that. Mm-hmm. We got to heal and we got to move forward. And having been an athlete myself, right, it's not all forward and it's not all sitting around healing. And it's a balance. And I wish I could tell you exactly on your calendar what that looks like, but really you got to listen to your body and pay attention. And you're going to sense that, set it on the calendar to kind of take that baby goal. But if it starts to be injury, what does injury look like? It's causing me to hate myself even more. I feel even more despair instead of this was a stretch goal that I was scared, but maybe get bigger, mm-hmm. Scared and makes me feel worse about myself.
Yes. Yeah. That's really helpful. And I want to ask more about the things not to do to seek comfort, but I feel like you're on a timeline question of like, how long would you suggest, or, there's no, 6 weeks you do this and then 6 weeks you do that. There's no such thing. Right.
Well,
but is there like something, just because I think some of us are so determined to get into this adaptation phase that it's like, how much grace and forgiveness should I give myself for just being where I am? Because I think there's that, right? Just love into yourself and say, it's all right. You're doing the best you can. You're here. Like those of us who are on this call, it's like, you're here, you're looking for answers and support. But what can you tell us about?
Yeah, I talk about goals as a seesaw. So for example, let's say I'm pushing too hard and I'm feeling injured and now it's time to pull back and just comfort myself and just be well. Well, that feels good until self-loathing kicks in and I'm like, time to get off my tuchus. Now I'm mad at So, every once in a while we'll have a time when I often say we're going to be anxiously testing ourselves and go forward with a little bit of doubt and anxiety, or I'm going to have depression because I fail to be somebody I'm proud of. Mm-hmm. So, I say, we're either resting and we're like, this feels like relief, or we're resting it and now we're self-loathing because we're not hitting our potential that we know we can. And that's where I say, baby, step back in, set a baby goal, give it a try. And wait for the flows. So that's the other thing is you really know when a goal is working when you try it. Maybe you're nervous to try it, but you put yourself out there and you try it, and then things start to flow, and then you can keep moving forward with that. Yeah. I do want to mention timeline because there are a few things. Most people can endure uncertainty for about 2 to 4 months. I just want to say, in general, most people can handle waiting 2 weeks to a month or two before hearing if they're going to get fired, or they can wait to hear back on an interview for about. People in general can handle uncertainty. After about 2 to 4 weeks, people go batty. They're just like, I can't handle uncertainty. And so that's where I say, you know what? Right now, it's going to be a little more than 2 weeks, isn't it? Till because we're stepping into a new norm. So I tell people sometimes what we might want to do is set up camp, put out your Adirondack chair in the life of uncertainty and start to have micro joy now, because we don't know where it's going. It could be 6 months, it could be 2 years, I don't know, it could be a month, I don't know, it could be next week.
Who knows?
But the bottom line is put out your camping chair, get out your blanket and try to have a little joy now. because we don't know. And by the way, I will go back to, because my husband is in the healthcare field and he's in ER, and so, you know, we can't self-contain.
Right.
This forced me to retouch my philosophy of life, and that is another important skill. It is important to have a philosophy of life, of how to live during uncertain times.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's a don't. Don't wait to exhale until it's all over. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because number one, what does that even mean? It's going to be phased. So don't wait to exhale until the governor tells you, or your boss tells you, or the planet. We want to embrace a philosophy of life that works for you in the interim phase. I'll share mine with you, but I have to tell you, you have to pick, everybody has to pick their philosophy of life. So my philosophy of life it's really my philosophy of life all the time, but especially now, love it fully, whether you have a day, a week, or a lifetime. Whatever it is right now that you love fully, love it, whether it lasts a day, a week, or a lifetime. Right? So I'm not going to spend this interim time fearing pulling back and ignoring my husband, right? I'm going to love him fully because he might be here a day or a lifetime, but he's an ER doctor. We don't know how that'll play. So I had to choose, and that's scarier, I think, sometimes, to go towards a philosophy that says, go ahead and live.
Yeah.
But if your philosophy requires waiting, you've given all your power away from yourself. To I don't know what if we give, I don't know who's going to tell us to live again.
Right.
So right now we need like an interim way of life.
Yes.
We're like prisoners of war, or we're in an internment camp.
Yep.
And we don't know when we're going to be released.
Right.
It's time to accept that, embrace that, and be well in it. You see, wellness isn't, we don't know when it's coming, and it's going to adapt. Believe me, things will adapt. But we're trying to create micro wellness in that interim phase.
Right. And, you know, as athletes, former athletes, as high achievers, as humans, we know that it's 80% psychology, 20% mechanics, right? We know that.
Yep.
The 80-20 rule totally applies here, which is why you're helping us today is so valuable, because you're giving us thoughts and ideas and direction that can help us really like work out that 80%. Like, because if we can control our mind, for the most part, and we can be cautious about some of these traps, or these very natural and understandable ways that could distract us from the things that we could be doing to be healthy, we need to like really make that our mission. It's like, you know, how can we work on our life philosophy? You know, where can we find the simple joys? Where will we put that Adirondack chair? I love that vision. Some of us kind of have a place, a special place in our lives where even if just mentally we go there, like we could do our Zoom background. Like, in fact, I set up a Zoom background of one of mine. I won't even do it because it'll distract me, but it's like this dock at the Narrows down in Delaware, down in the Fenwick Island area.
There it is.
Like, I kept mentally putting myself there, and I was like, wait a second, now on Zoom I can
literally put yourself there. And an important thing there, Shannon, is we don't relax when life is all figured out. We relax now, even in the middle of the shit show, right? So I often say to people say, you seem relaxed. Everything must be okay? I'm like, I'm relaxed not because everything's okay.
Yeah.
Everything's not okay. I'm relaxed because I don't want to wait until this mythical day, you know, as soon as everything's okay, the roof blows or, you know, plumbing goes. So the challenge is to relax now for 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, or develop a mindset of joy and peace in the now, not when. And I know for high achievers, we often link fulfillment and relaxing when we achieve, when we climb that mountain, when we get that promotion, we feel good when. And I say, I'm okay with achievement. I like feeling good then. I also like feeling now. So I talk about feeling good now as I'm on my journey, not when I achieve my peak.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So you're saying that we can endure uncertainty for 2 to 3 weeks, and we're kind of at our window there. And then we're moving into phase 2, where we're trial and error. And then we will eventually end up in adaptation.
Yes, we will move into adaptation. Now, most of us, our resilience and creativity will kick in. We won't have any other choice. We'll sort of, you know, move into that new space. However, there are some people that get caught up in, and they don't move past. They never move on. And you've met them. There are people who something happened to them in life and they never move forward. Because they get caught in a mindset of entitlement, that they were entitled to something that they deserve, and the world happened to them and they didn't get it. Does that make sense? And they get stuck there. So it's normal to feel some of that now, like I was supposed to have a graduation as a senior, or it's normal and healthy to be sad and mourn, but some people get stuck there and they never move past, because they'll say something like, I worked really hard. I know a lot of athletes that were ready for the Olympics this year. You know, that's a pretty tough pill to swallow, or nationals this year.
A whole life they worked for that. Yeah.
Part of what I'm saying to them is hard work will pay off. It doesn't always pay off when and where we think, but it doesn't go nowhere. So there are some don'ts. The don'ts are continue to feel that the world conspired personally against us. We want to know that the whole world is suffering. That's helpful. But also know that our time is coming. Our payoff is coming. It just isn't when and where we thought. We also got to watch out for words like can't, won't, and don't. Can't get, won't happen. We want to move to possible. What's possible? What's flexible? Those words help us not stay stuck. So can't, won't, don't are words associated with low frustration tolerance. Words like adapt, flex, find a way, navigate are associated with higher frustration tolerance, which is what we need for a marathon.
Right.
I did see a really great comment in the chat that popped up, which is when I relax, I feel guilty. Is that kind of in the nutshell? Did you see that, Shannon?
Yeah, she says sometimes the feeling of relaxing and feeling okay bring on feelings of guilt for those who are in trauma. And then there's also a question in the Q&A box, which I'll share with you once you respond to that one. Yeah,
it is an interesting phenomena that we feel guilty when we feel well. And that, first of all, that could be true for high achievers. They're suspicious of relaxing because there's FOMO, like they should be working hard. Keep in mind, relaxing heals and helps us move forward. But also, when people have been traumatized, they feel guilty having wellness because they feel that's not the right feeling, that the right feeling is suffering. So let's say they lose a child, for example, and they have a good day. They feel guilty that they're having joy. One thing we want to know about feelings. Feelings aren't facts, first of all. They're feelings, and they're not, we didn't invent them. They come to us. They come to us, and we process them, and they move past us. So we didn't conjure up, we didn't conjure up certain things. Now we can intentionally create more joy, and we can talk about that. But when we feel wellness, it's not because the world is good. It's not because bad things did. It doesn't mean we're approving it. So to feel happy now doesn't mean we are loving this. No. It's okay to hate it and also have joy at the same time. That's called the complexity of holding space. Think about a shelf with books on it, if you will, and you have one right behind. Yeah. On the shelf is tragedy as well as joy. We're not saying it has to be one or the other. That's not how life is. It's complex. We're allowed to have joy and tragedy in the same day. First of all, allowed to, it just is. It is what we do. So by making space for the joy, it just puts the tragedy in perspective that it's an also. And I think a lot of people are confused by that right now. They're like, why am I is it okay that my family's having joy right now in the midst of this pandemic? It is what it is. Life is this way. We have tragedy and joy in the same day, laughter and pain in the same day. And so we're just holding space or making room for the complexity of those emotions. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Well said. And it's giving ourselves permission and accepting and really like harmonizing those two things and not judging like, oh, I should just have this or I should just have that. I feel like what you're saying is that self-acceptance and that permission to
feel the feelings that we have along that. It was just, sometimes parents will say, I feel bad, but I really hate my child right now. I'm like, well, welcome to humanity. We're allowed to love something and hate it at the same time. It wouldn't be normal if we didn't have the whole range. And having joy doesn't minimize pain, and having pain doesn't minimize joy. It just puts it all into the perspective.
Right. So on that point, so we don't lose it, for those who are experiencing that either for a child or a partner or a teammate or a boss or whoever, what recommendation or what advice can you give to someone who's feeling that hatred
Yeah.
towards the person?
Oh gosh, we could spend a whole day on this. I spend a lot of time in my practice helping people deal with their feelings or dynamics of difficult people or people they find difficult. So a few thoughts. First one is, again, to accept having that feeling. A lot of people judge themselves for not liking someone. They don't like that they're not loving someone or respecting. So they don't like that feeling. And so first of all, we want to just accept that we are having a feeling that we don't enjoy. And now we want the coping tools to manage that feeling. So let's call it hatred towards something or someone else, particularly someone else. One of the things that we can do is, again, try to think of a shelf and try to think of other feelings we also have. Now, sometimes we have to go outside of ourselves and go, is there something positive about that person somebody else might say?
Yeah.
Because today, I just want to hate them. And so by doing that, again, we're not minimizing that they are difficult or even oppressive if it's a boss or whatever. We're viewing the and or the also. The next thing we might want to do is there's this visualization where we visualize being like the Jolly Green Giant or something very large, or what I call the Good Witch, looking down on the tops of their heads and observing them moving through their life and trying to understand them and say, what is it they're doing and why? And from that perspective, what do they need or not need? And how, watching how they interact in their little ant room or ant office. What could I predict about if I insert myself in there? What'll go well, what won't go well? So now we're doing that for a reason. When we're upset with somebody, our brain affords or assigns larger space to them, and we feel intimidated by them. These teenagers, they upset us, or these bosses. If you can visually see yourself larger and predict their comings and going, you can begin to go, oh, I can see how me doing that is not going to go well for that critter. And so you can actually become more strategic in how and when to interact in ways that are helpful and productive based on reality, not what you wish was going to happen, but what is going to happen.
Yes. Yeah, that's really helpful. And then I've also heard
one of a billion techniques that we've got. Yeah.
So good. So good. The reframing, like Holly shared with us. So I want to go back to the do's and don'ts, but let me just pull this question out so we can respond to it.
Sure.
From someone who says, can you speak a bit to the role that redirecting our anxiety/energy to helping others contributes to our own wellness? A lot of my friends are dealing with a number of issues, loss of health, loss of jobs, loss of life, etc.
Yes.
I feel that by channeling their anxiety into helping them and their families, etc., whether picking up groceries or sending simple notes of encouragement, is really powerful.
Yes. So at times of hopelessness, when we feel hopeless or, overwhelmed, having something small and concrete to do is really useful. So if you feel helpless about the world right now or about your friends and their losses, having something concrete that you do, it's probably more for us than them, though it is not unhelpful for them as well. We need humans, when we feel so helpless, having something concrete. This is why people are organizing drawers right now. They're cleaning their houses because they need somewhere to put that energy.
Yes.
So, there's two parts to that. One is it's healthy and normal and a good adjustment strategy to put your energy somewhere. It's not healthy to sit at home and watch the news and seep in your own helplessness and tragedy without having something to take action on. The other thing I would add is it's also okay to feel those feelings of helplessness and sadness and grief for them, to feel the feelings inside ourselves. So it is also normal to go ahead and cry on their behalf, maybe not to them or with them, although some of them will find that helpful to know that you're suffering alongside of them. One other thing is suffering with people is an important thing you can do for them. Is just be there and let them know you care. We can't always fix them and we can't always make their pain go away, but gestures where we say, I'm here and I'm thinking about you, enduring it on the sidelines with them is just a tremendous act of bravery and love.
Absolutely. And on that note, can you talk a bit about loneliness?
Yeah.
Because what I'm hearing from that question is like giving to others and contributing and being generous actually makes me feel good. And you're saying, yes, take action, do those things. And part of what you could do is feel with people, give yourself permission and invite yourself in and show them how much you love them, or just, you know, cry in your own privacy on their behalf because you're feeling this pain.
That's right.
And I heard you talk about like just being on your, some people feel like they're on their own.
Yes.
And I think now more than ever with social isolation, those who, you know, loneliness was on the rise anyway, and now this happened. So what can you share with us about understanding loneliness and how we can be more communal?
Yes, so it's a really important point. I'm glad you brought it up. Loneliness is very painful for people, and it can exacerbate our suffering. So we do want to foster connections, and all of us are struggling to connect differently, but it is important to find a few people that you know you can connect to and link in with them. Why is that? Number one, no, humans are not, we're not T-Rex. We don't have a lot of weapons. We can't go through the world safely. We don't have fangs or tails or teeth or whatever. So we've only survived because we band together. So on an existential level, we are terrified when we're going through a crisis all alone. This is why people are afraid if they can't be near their family. You know, we feel existentially terrified by that. So being connected helps us know we're not alone. We're not going through this alone, and we're okay in that way. So having gestures of giving and connecting really are important. I will say Zoom is fantastic. It isn't a substitute for having the biochemistry of another human or even an animal to comfort us. There is something valuable about another being in our presence that helps calm the biochemistry of people. I do want to add, though, there is a whole group of people right now who are either introverts or are very overwhelmed by humans and stimulation. And I have a larger than I would have predicted percentage of my mental health clients saying they have never felt calmer than they have in this isolate. And what they're saying is, me having to figure out all these people and what they want of me, and everybody's saying, you know, your problem is you don't go out enough, you don't connect. They are truly well. They're more well alone. Alone is not the same as lonely.
Yes.
Right? So I do want to put a shout out to people who are feeling really settled, that a lot of their unwellness that predated this pandemic was about interacting with other people.
Yes.
And they're feeling so much more in control of their lives and calmer. And they're like, I'm not pressuring myself to look like I'm doing anything.
Yeah.
I think it's so good about it. I do want to sort of just acknowledge and validate that some people are feeling really well. And even a lot of my teenage and college age clients are saying, I don't have to constantly post and prove that I'm doing things.
Yeah.
I can just be
social pressure. Is relieved. Yeah.
So we want to acknowledge the need to connect, but also acknowledge the need to not connect and not feel bad about that. And just, again, go to whatever feels well.
Yeah. And find a place where you are a member of a community or create a community. Because I think, you know, loneliness doesn't just mean being alone. However, some are single people who live alone and now told to stay away from people. So that's got to be very challenging. But even those who have a house full of people may still feel alone. You know, all of us have experienced loneliness. It's a human situation. And so a way that I have found is like finding a community or creating a community of people that I know I belong to and who I feel comforted by, in addition to my family, has been very helpful.
I do want to point out that people that, for example, that are sheltering with their family, you know, our family members, some people get along very, very well and are simpaticos. Some people, their family members are not their people. You know, their people. Yeah. People they feel most settled with are different than their family. They feel sometimes judged or out of sync. And so even though they're surrounded with their family and they're not alone, they are lonely for their people. And so they might be confused by that or feel pressured by that. But just because there's a human in the house doesn't mean some people aren't feeling extremely lonely for their people. Especially, I think that teenagers and college age kids, but really anybody.
Yeah.
Their people might be people that your green light people are the people that when you're around them, they get you. They just totally get you without judging you or needing you to be a different version.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Like, thank God. And I'm on record now for saying this, but thank God for Xbox Live.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, my son is a high school senior and my daughter's a junior. So they're in that mode of their lives where their people are really important to them.
That's right. That's how they're connected.
Live, playing a game, sometimes till hours in the morning. But like, it's healthy to do that.
That's how they're connecting. And it would be easy for us to judge that. Yeah. But if this is how they're feeling, surrounded by their people, that's where we've got to be careful how judging right and wrong, the right or wrong way to go through life. It's really, we got to look at the data of each person. Are they more well, less well? Are they dysfunctional or more functional, less functional? It's easy to judge, but each of us has a different set of needs.
Absolutely. Yes. So I want you to be able to share some of your do's and don'ts, because this is really like there's many people on this call that are like, give me the tools, Lani, give me the tools.
Yeah. So I think I may have mentioned one of the don'ts. We don't want to cling too hard to what was or need what was to be what will be. Does that make sense? So, warning shot, what will be may not likely be what was. And so at some point we want to be able to lift, open space, and flex. Similarly, I say this a lot, the antidote to fear is not peace, it's bravery. So let me just sort of state that again. So thinking that we need, certainty, like reassurance, like somebody to tell you it's all going to be okay. Like, is it going to be okay? What if this happens? Someone go, don't worry about that. That's not really what we need. What we need right now during uncertain times as our antidote to fear is bravery. And bravery is about, we'll face it. It's not about, it's all going to be okay. It's going to be, we are going to face it because we don't have any choice, and we will adapt because we don't have any choice. And now perspective, let's look back. We've, as a human society, we've adapted because we have to. And so when people say, is it going to be okay? The antidote can't be, it's all going to be fine. It's going to be what it's going to be, and we're going to figure it out, right? And that's resilience. So the do is adapt, face it, and face it with little micro joy moments along the way.
Yeah.
So that's where we also might want to add, I do recommend creating new tiny rituals to look forward to, because all the big things we were looking forward to are suspended.
Yeah.
We're done. And so, creating, and it's going to be tiny and small, but like a little thing, like Mexican night or something.
Cinco de Mayo's coming.
Cinco de Mayo, So something tiny, something with humor, something small to look forward to. If we don't have something to look forward to, we're not going to tolerate the frustration of this. So do's is micro moments. Don't wait for the big things to come back.
Yeah, and mourn and long. And the other thing I'm hearing you say, Lani, is that, since we're seeking certainty, to get certain in our courage.
Yeah. Get certain. Now, how do we do that? I do recommend the following kinds of phrases. I recommend that people adapt what we call your anchor phrases, like 4 phrases that you use when the storm of anxiety hits you. And you're like, oh my God, what's going to happen? Am I going to be okay? Will I have enough money? Will I be safe? Anchor down to 4 anchor statements of who I am. I am a hard worker. I don't know. These are whatever your things are, things you know to be true about you that are going to would have been true and will be true. I am a hard worker. I am open. I am a learner. I have grit. I have love. I can love people. I can love again. I embrace fun. I don't know, whatever. Don't use my words. Make sure you use your words.
Absolutely.
What we want to do is imagine like the tent blowing in the backyard, and you're anchoring down with these I am statements, or I know this to be true about myself. And you can do this even with your children and loved ones. Here's what I know about you. I mean, one of my sons called me in a panic years ago about a class he was taking in college, and I wanted to sort of grab certainty, like drop the class, or I wanted to call the professor. You can't do that. You'd be crazy as a mom. And what I did was just say, listen, I don't know how this is going to resolve for you. I just know that it will at some point. And I know you have all your teeth and you're good looking. So in general, here's what I know about you, right? So I added, I know you're hardworking. I know you care. I know you'll try. And I know you figure things out. And so call me back in 2 hours. Let me know how you navigate this. Right. So at that moment, I'm just conjuring up the tools of, I don't know how we're going to get through this. I just know that we will, because we are, and you can anchor your family or your loved ones or your team if you're a leader or a CEO, we are adaptive.
Yes. The thing I know about that, Lani, is that those I am statements can include the things you know you already are. Like those things that you rattled off to your son, you know he is those things. Yeah. And we can include the things that we really want to be.
That's right.
I think for those who don't think that they're courageous, or they don't think that they're gritty, or they don't think whatever, that they're lovable, to tell yourself that you are, and that actually creates more of a reality than
it does. If you find that your I am is like, you're like, I don't really believe it. I often say I am determined to be, right? So if they can't, we don't want a sentence that we don't believe to be 100% true, or we will reject it. So a sentence like, you know, I am open and I am determined to be more blank. You know, now also we convert fear to determination. I ask my clients in both coaching and mental health to do that. They're very terrified about things or fearful. And I say, can you convert that to determination? I am determined that I will find a way to live well. I am determined that I will find a way to love myself. I am determined, you know, so linking it again into an empowerment statement from, you know, fear, again, it's just such a desperate 2-year-old feeling.
I know.
We have no ability to control it.
Yes. That is so, so helpful. The I ams, anchoring ourselves in that. So some of the other skills you shared with me, like on how we can be strong on the other side, and how we need to think about this now so we don't stay stuck, because these potential habits that we might build with the fear anchor could have long-term negative consequences, where we could then pin this event to something that stays with us forever. Like when you spoke earlier about the people who have not yet gotten over some deeper tragedy in their life. Can you talk about that so that we—
Absolutely. Yeah. And if people are very interested in this, that TEDx talk, Shannon, that I have gets into this, but sort of staying stuck versus moving forward. And it's very important stuff. So you've met people, we've all met people that have a tragedy or event happen to them and they just haven't gotten over it, versus we've all met people who've gone through unbelievable tragedy that will say, no, I didn't love it. No, I didn't. I don't wish this on my enemies, but I'm stronger and I am more resilient and I have a deeper capacity to love and embrace life now. And those are the people that have moved forward or been resilient. So the staying stuck is asking a lot of why me questions. So if you ever want to get stuck, if you want tragedy to ruin you, well, first of all, take heroin, because that will guarantee that it'll ruin your life. So definitely shoot up heroin. That will keep you stuck. So, drugs and alcohol, but adding why me? Why me is a very pathologic question. Why did this happen to me? You're only going to get horrible answers to that question. Yeah. It's not going to go anywhere pleasant. And why now? Why me? Why now? Those are going to lead to staying very, very stuck. And comparing ourselves to people who are well, that's a way to just feel miserable. What we want to do is study how. Study how people navigate it. Study the ones that are doing okay. And again, not saying I have to be them, but look broadly at a variety of people and study people that are well and sort of window shop for how I could be well. With this tragedy, how could I be well? Which of these options or flexibilities or strategies might work for me? So number one, I'm connecting myself to a broader range of the world that has also suffered. Now, I'm not just the only one suffering. So whatever it is, loss of child or loss of fortune or a pandemic, it's study those who've also gone through it so you don't feel like, why me only? It's how did they? So instead of why me, how do they navigate it? How do those who innovate and navigate, what are they trying? Again, not to be them, but to learn from them, to experiment for ourselves. How can I navigate so that I am determined to be whole somehow? I often say, though, in my sort of I have a tragedy survival kit, and I highly recommend everybody have like a backpack ready to go with about 10 things in it that if tragedy strikes, this is your survival kit. Mine has chocolate. It has some friends in it. It's got a year of therapy and some strong like, I'm just telling you now, if tragedy hits, you know, my
what I need.
I already know, you know, it's going to be some doctors, it's going to be some medicine, a hospital somewhere. You will see me a year, you know, it'll take me a year for Humpty Dumpty, but I will have a team of specialists, my dear friends, and good chocolate. Like, and that's in my survival kit. And I do recommend people come, like, if the horrible, terrible hits, instead of why me, why did this happen? How will I navigate? And I don't need to know all the particulars. I just need to know that I will. And when we are going through that tragedy, studying who navigates it well, not because we're going to say we loved it, but because we're going to get through it.
That's right. Yeah, that is so helpful. Thank you for that. And having our own kit, like each of us has our own formula and ingredients for what we need to restore and be well. And so you're saying, like, just mentally put that backpack together.
Yes, and know that what works for somebody else, it's okay if it doesn't work for you. And I find a lot of my clients judge themselves. They'll try something that someone tells them they're supposed to do to feel better, and it truly doesn't work for them.
Yeah.
And so really trusting that what's in your backpack doesn't have to be what everybody else does.
That's right. Yeah, and I'm also hearing you say don't do it out of jealousy or envy, but more out of inspiration to window shop and look at what are the resources that you could choose and then decide which ones you want to try. And
the key word I talk a lot about is curiosity. Stay open, stay curious, try, be persistent, but be flexible. Try, because we don't know. And something that did work for us maybe doesn't work anymore. We outgrow certain coping tools or even coping people. And just because it worked for one phase of our lives, if we've outgrown it, it's okay to, you know, we want to be persistent, but not rigid.
Yeah.
As we stay curious about what's working. Absolutely.
Love that. So I'm going to ask you this one other thing. And then those of you who have questions, please put it either in the chat or in the Q&A area. So you talked to me, we connected a couple of times since this all went down, about unproductive stress versus productive stress.
Yeah.
I've been talking about it, but to put it into those two categories might help some who are trying to synthesize this.
That's a really, yes, let's talk about that. So a lot of people feel that stress is bad, right? So they feel like anxiety is bad or stress is bad. Yeah. Some stress and anxiety is highly productive. It is productive stress. It is productive anxiety. What do I mean? I mean, it goes to something better. So productive stress, productive worry, productive anxiety is time limited and we lose some sleep over it, but it leads us to something better or different. That's true of productive sadness and grief, productive depression. It's temporary, but it touches our values and it informs our values and informs our pathway or steps forward. Yeah. Unproductive stress and anxiety and depression is when we're just literally ruminating and there's no there. It doesn't go anywhere. It goes for weeks or days on end, and we just hate ourselves even more, or hate our life even more, and we become in despair or hopeless or just crippled by terror. That's unproductive. There's no there. If we're having unproductive anxiety, we really want to get counseling, potentially medication if people need that, because we need enough wellness or anti-allergy, anti-inflammation to begin to move into productive stress. So think about our children, for example, or athletes. It's not useful for them to never be in stress. It is with stress and pressure that they grow. This is what they need. They need to be challenged, and we need to be challenged to adapt and grow. So as horrible as that sounds, to say to people, one way to look at this is a tremendous challenge, stress challenge.
Yeah.
A tremendous 100% stress challenge of how we might be invited to adapt and grow. And that's what I try to help my clients do with any tragedy, any challenge, is convert it to productive distress, not 100% wellness like day one. That's not realistic, but productive distress versus just feeling it without any action plan. And if a person feels so overwhelmed that they can't come up with an action plan, that's again where a licensed professional, a treating person can help them convert useless self-loathing or worry into productive determination to improve and grow.
Yes. One of the literally countless things that you have taught me I think we've been friends for about 10 years. I think it's 8, that we need skills and pills
Yeah.
sometimes. So you said neither is enough in some cases, like the ones that you're referring to right now.
That's right.
One without the other, like, so you don't just want to medicate it. You also want to equip yourself with skills, which is what you've been generously sharing on this call. So you're saying that there are points in time where you would benefit
Medication could be warranted. So I talk about pills and skills with my clients. Pills only, I almost never recommend that somebody do pills only, because our emotions often need a roadmap. And also the pills could medicate the emotions, and then emotions could be trying to tell us something. So I always recommend skills. But there are times when someone's so inflamed or in so much distress that they could be a very good candidate for a low dose of medication to take off that distress or allergy, so that we can add the skills. And then for some of my clients, then we then really power up the skills, and we can even titrate off of those medications. And so again, I'm working with doctors when I do this. There are other clients that, again, working with a doctor, psychiatrist, they might be on pills for a long time if they have a chemical disruption, a genetic chemical disruption that benefits from stabilization. But again, the skills allow them to navigate their lives with a high quality of life. So I would say almost never go straight to pills. I rarely would recommend anybody go to pills alone, because our thoughts and behaviors cause so much of our distress that pills are simply insufficient, and they mask sometimes for example, if somebody's in an oppressive relationship where they're depressed because the relationship didn't go well, they need the tools
Yes,
to navigate that.
Absolutely. So on the point of medication, can you speak a little bit about self-medication? When we talked about seeking comfort and wanting to feel good, and, it's understandable that a lot of people are going to self-medication, and right. There's a point where it's funny, and then there's a point where it is too much. So
problematic. Yeah. Any habit left unchecked or out of balance becomes harmful to us, right? So self-medication, let's say drinking wine or something like that. And I don't know if people are aware, but people should be aware, the levels of women, middle-aged women drinking in this country have skyrocketed with the wine culture that we have. We're drinking wine with just about everything. And people need to be aware of that, because we've never had such high rates of women and alcohol problems in this country as we're having over the last few years. So it is a problem. It's also, forget alcoholism, it's also, not great for the body. So I'm not a never person. I just put that out there. I'm not a never person with things in life, except heroin. I'm just putting that out there. That's a never. But with self-medication, let's take drinking in particular, or food. Again, if you're going to be eating more or drinking more, then you better have stronger tools for how to regulate life without that, right? So if you start speeding in a car, you better have really good brakes. What happens is people start drinking more and eating more, and their brakes loosen. And in fact, when people start drinking, they're less inhibited. They're less likely to stop bad behaviors like eating, or stop their drinking, because they become inhibited. So unfortunately, alcohol, it deadens your cutoff valve, when you should shut up or when you should stop eating or drinking. Alcohol numbs that cutoff valve, and you don't know when to stop. And so we want to be really aware that if you're going to be adding something, you've got to add the counter, or you're going to do some harm. If you're only doing biceps and you don't work your triceps, you're going to blow your shoulder out of order. So right. If you learn assertiveness, but you don't learn kindness, you're going to blow a disorder. So any kind of self-indulgence, we really want to be growing our counters to that, or learning how to have wellness without it. Yeah. Or we're going down a pathway that's going to get harder and harder to pull ourselves back.
So a counter wellness to, say, a wine indulgence would be sleep, exercise, hydration.
But also sober mindfulness and peace. So wellness without it. So, if you want to be well or calm, learning, then self-meditation, micro joy, how to sit for 10 minutes or 20 minutes in your house and feel wellness, gratitude, letting yourself, maybe a walk in nature, or looking at something that gives you joy, learning how to have joy without that substance. And a lot of people don't take that seriously. And we talk about meditation, we talk about relaxation techniques, we talk about deep breathing. The literature is astounding in how helpful and positive all of those things are for wellness.
Yes.
And then people numb themselves. They're not necessarily having wellness, they're just numbing some of their unwellness, which again is not the same as being able to create sober sort of great wellness.
Right. Oh, beautiful. Thank you. That's such a good note to close on.
There's lots of apps out there, and there's free trials. You could go from a 30-day free trial of this mindfulness or happy app to another one and do it pretty cost-free right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know a lot of organizations like Deepak Chopra put out this whole thing on peace and calm, and I love the Calm app.
Yeah, that's a good
one. Familiar with that. So great advice. Thank you, Lani, again, for your generous support and help. I know that this is going a long way.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Shannon. Take care.